So welcome to another episode of the camper build. We are back after a short break. It's finally starting to warm up a little bit so we can start working on it again. It was a little cold out and we had been getting a bunch of snow. So we're going to go over the posts that I made for the camper. This is just the prototype post, which is basically the same thing that I have on the camper. And I'll show you the differences between what I started out with and what I finished up with. So when I started designing the camper, I was originally going to follow the profile of the truck where everything kind of comes in a little bit, so it kind of all blends into the back. But I went ahead and went with the vertical alignment here. This is by far the quickest and easiest way to get everything going. And I had a couple road trips coming up and I had sold the topper, so this was pretty much my only option that I had. But I'm really starting to like the way it looks and the extra room that it gives you in the truck. Also, with the cab over part of the camper here, if I go vertical alignment, I pretty much get a full queen size bed for the width wise. So I think I'm just going to stick with this vertical alignment for the camper. But for the topper, I'm also going to build a topper for the truck. You know, take the camper off and then put a topper on. That one I probably will go ahead and follow the profile of the truck. I've been trying to figure out how to mount an angle onto my 80-20 solution here on the bottom. So I had a couple ideas for that I'm still working through, and I kind of want to go over those to see if anybody has some extra ideas or any input, so I can go ahead and start working on that. And then I'm going to go over how I made these posts here with the vertical alignment with the little 1/4 inch plate here on the bottom. So I am using some angles on the camper. As you can see here on the top rail, I do have a 45-degree cut. I'm going to go over this in detail on how I made this and how I drilled all the holes and put it all together when I talk about the top rail of the camper. This has actually turned out to be a lot stronger than I was anticipating. Just by drilling the holes and the way it's all mounted, there's not a lot of material to hold it together. But I mean, it really works good for this application, but I don't think that it would work very well for the post because you need a lot more support. But I'm going to go over that a little later. So you can pretty much build these posts out of any material that you want. It doesn't have to be the 80-20. It just has to be strong enough to be able to support everything for the camper. And then you have to have a way to attach the bottom of the post either to the bed rail of the truck or to the 80-20 rail that I have mounted on the bed rail of the truck. And then you also need a way to mount the top rail of the camper to the top of the post here. But you could use, for example, this is 2x2 inch, I think this is 1/8 inch wall thick steel, or you could do the same thing with aluminum. I'm going to kind of go over those ideas of how to use these instead of using the 80-20. And then I'm going to go into detail on how I made the 80-20 post that I have here, which is basically a 1x2. I was going to use some 2x2. This is from a bench, a post that I'm working on, or a leg for a bench that I'm working on. So I'm not going to use this for the camper. I think I'm just going to stick with the 1x2 to kind of keep the weight down. But I'm going to go over all that later. So anyways, let me go over some of the ways I was going to mount these to the 80-20. So, you know, for example, here I got the flat bar plate, 1/4 inch flat bar plate that I used to mount everything for the vertical alignment. But I'm going to go over some of the ideas that I had to have an angled attachment point to the 1x3 that's on the bed rail of the truck. So here's what I was talking about earlier about mounting a piece of 80-20 at an angle to another piece. Basically, I just drilled a hole here, and that way I can get a bolt in there and then put either a T-nut into this slot to attach the two together, or as I did in the front of the truck, I tied into this hole here, tapped a hole here. But, you know, like I said before, there's not a lot of material that's holding it together, so it probably really wouldn't work for doing this for the post of the truck. So when I was originally going to build the post for the camper, I was going to use this material here, which is 2 inch by 2 inch steel, 1/8 inch wall thick. I was also thinking about using aluminum, kind of the same dimensions. So I was going to weld it to a plate. This is just a piece of cardboard for example, but like a 1/4 inch plate of the same material. And just weld it to that plate and then drill some holes on each side, and then that way I can mount it directly to that 80-20 rail that I have on the bed rail of the truck. Or I could also maybe use like an angle stock, something like that, where this is would sit on the inside bed of the rail, and use this piece here to attach to that channel that runs on the inside of the truck. So that way I could quite easily mount this piece at any angle to match the profile of the truck, or just at a vertical alignment like I have now. So another idea that I had was to build something like a receiver hitch, where you take like a 5-inch or 6-inch piece of this, except for having an outer dimension of 2 inches by 2 inches, you'd have an inner dimension of 2 inches by 2 inches. And that way this piece would be able to slide inside. And then you take that short piece, same as before, you'd weld it to a plate, either in a vertical alignment or in an angle to match the profile of your truck. So this kind of brings up some interesting options, because you can make your receiver out of aluminum or steel and then start mixing materials. You can have your post any material where you can use steel, aluminum, or kind of like a 2-inch by 2-inch piece of 80-20, and be able to kind of slide it in there. And the original idea was to have kind of the receiver on the top and the bottom, and then that way I can adjust the length of the post. So I was going to build the camper, which was going to be one height, and then I was going to build a truck top or a truck cap, depending on what you want to call it, at a different height, but use the same brackets, but just kind of have different posts that would kind of slide in there. So I had this idea too, just using cardboard here for example, but weld up some plates, either aluminum or steel, into this configuration, and then cut some access holes here on the bottom, and then mount the 80-20 on like that, and then some access holes here on the top, so you can mount the plate onto the rail. But I kind of didn't go with it. I didn't think this was a good idea, but I'll just kind of share it real quick. So this is literally the idea that I was going to use before I decided to go with the vertical posts like I have now. But basically what I was going to do is try to find some square tubing or rectangular tubing that had an inner dimension of 2 inches by hopefully like 3 to 4 inches or something like that, and then cut it off so you have like a U channel. And then I'm not sure what the best angle is for you to see, but then you can just kind of mount this in here for a vertical alignment or in an angle. And then what you'd want to do is have like one hole that goes all the way through and bolt it together to kind of make sure that it all stays together. And then I'd probably want to have at least one hole that I could attach the outer part here to the T-slot in here to really pull it tight together to kind of make it all stable. So, like I said, this was what I was going to go with, and then I was going to cut these ears off if I was going to go on an angle to kind of make it all clean. Okay, so I had to cut a couple more pieces of cardboard to kind of show you everything. Sorry for the cardboard example, but that's all I got. So if I couldn't find this piece where I could cut the top off, which I didn't think I was going to be able to find something with a 2-inch inner diameter that had a really tall width to it, I was going to go ahead and use like just regular angle, like 3-inch or 4-inch angle, and kind of attack it from the outside. So kind of the same process where you drill some holes here and attach it directly to the 80-20 rail that's on the bed of the truck. And then the same thing where you would mount everything like this. So you'd have the two angles and your post in a vertical position or in a angled position. And the same thing where you'd want to drill a hole that goes all the way through to kind of make sure everything stays together, and then maybe use one of these T-slots and attach it to the bracket on each side to really kind of pull everything tight. But those are the two options I had with the angle and a kind of a square stock. But you could also, what I was thinking too, that after the fact, that you could take the two pieces of angle and stack them together so you have like a really thick bottom part here, and attach it to to the rail here, and then kind of the same thing where you'd have the same setup. You'd probably have to cut one of these down, or you'd only be able to use 2-inch angle at that point, so that wouldn't give you very much on the support on the vertical side. So, well, no, that's not true. So if you had like 3-inch angle, you could cut one of the sides to 2 inches, and then one probably less than 2, so you could mount everything like that. So that would work. And then kind of the same thing where you, as I was talking about before, where you have the piece in a vertical or in an angle, and then cut the ears off to make everything clean. But that kind of led me to this post, which I'll get to next. So I'm getting ready to start the topper for the truck. Like I said before, I really like the look of the camper here with the vertical post, but for the topper, like I said, with a square back, I think it would look a little tacky. So with the topper, I'm definitely going to match the profile of the truck to kind of make it blend in a little bit better. But keep an eye out for those videos. Those are going to be coming out soon. And I'm also going to continue working on the topper as well, or the camper part as well. So for the topper, I think I'm going to go with the bracket I was just talking about, where I take the two angles. So what I'll probably do is I'll get maybe 4-inch steel angle, 1/8 inch thick or 3/16 thick. I think a 1/4 inch might be a little bit too much, but I'm not sure. I have to think about it. And then take the two pieces, cut one side 2 inches or the width of my post, and then stack the two together, drill some holes, mount it onto the 80/20 rail that I have, and then go ahead and like I was showing earlier, mount my post into the bracket. So I'm going to go ahead and start all that probably with this solution, because I think this is probably the best solution that I have. I'm not sure how well it's going to work. I just have to give it a shot and see if it's going to be a feasible option. So that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to follow along on the camper build, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.